Parshas Vayishlach describes at the beginning of the Parsha the confrontation between Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov dreads the confrontation. The verse says, this is in Lamed Beis, Pasuk Zayin, Vayira Yaakov ma'od vayetzer lo. Yaakov was very frightened and he was troubled. So what does he do? So Chazal summarize his Yaakov's plan by saying that he prepared for three things. He prepared for this confrontation with three things. Number one, with gifts that he bestowed upon Esav, with prayer that he prayed to Hashem to save him from Esav, and lastly, he prepared for battle. And one of the ways in which he prepared for battle was by splitting up his camp into two, with the express contemplation that if the first one gets attacked, the second one can escape. What were these gifts? So they were considerable. The pasuk says that we're reading now from Yudalid, that's 14, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes, which are female sheep, and 20 rams, male sheep, 30 nursing camels and their offspring, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, 10 male donkeys. So he then took those groups of animals, each group, say the Meforshim, that is, according to its own kind, is called an eder, a flock. So he split them up according to their species, and he placed the distance between them. Revach tasimu ben eder le'eder. So he tells his staff to separate the flock. So if you have, let's count them. If he's got goats, male and female, he's got sheep, male and female. He's got camels and their offspring, and cows and bulls, that's 4 types, and then 20 female donkeys and 10 males. So that's 5 different types. So he splits them into 5 adorim. And he tells his people to place a space between them. And some of the commentaries say that the space that he placed was as far as the eye could see, which means that each grouping ended up being presented to Esav before he could see any of the other groupings. Why did he do this? Well, let's continue. Then Yaakov charges his servants, and he says, here's the script, as follows. He tells the first one, Vayitzavis Rishon, this is Pasuk Yud Zayin, 17. Lemor, saying, Kiv Gashcha Esav Achi Ushelcha, Lemor, Lemiyatov Anoselecha Lemiyelef Lenecha. So if you run into my brother Esav, and he asks you these 3 things. Number 1, to whom do you belong? And where are you going? That's number 2. And number 3, and to whom does all of this belong? So you answer to him. Number 1, La'avdachol Yaakov, mincha yishluchi ladoni le'esav. They belong to Yaakov, and they're being sent as a gift to you. V'hinei gamhu acharenu, and he's behind us. Now it gets a little curious. Then he says the same thing to the second one. Ve'etzav games hashini. He says the same thing to the third one. Games hashlishi. And he says the same thing to the fourth and the fifth. Games kol ha'olchim acharei adorim lemor kadavar hazeh tedabruna le'esav motza'achem oso. And he tells them all, this is the message. Yaakov is focusing on the message, on the impression and on the message. And then he adds, V'amartem gam hinei avdecho Yaakov acharenu. And also, your servant Yaakov is behind us. Well, that's something that he said earlier, but okay. Why does he repeat it? Ki omar achapra panav b'mincha aleches lefonoi v'achreichen ere panoi ulayis apanim. Because he said, who said? Yaakov said, I will achapra panav. What exactly does that mean? So Rashi says, I will cleanse, or I will. He says kapara generally means to cleanse. I will cleanse myself, like Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, of cleansing. I will achieve this atonement from before him with this gift that I'm giving. So Rashi reads this as the Torah telling us what Yaakov said in his mind, what he was thinking. The Ramban takes issue with this. The Ramban says that this is part of the message. Now, he says, the Meforshei Rashi and continuation reading into Rashi's, that Rashi's rationale is that he thought this to himself. He did not say, so that I may achieve atonement for my brother. Why? Because that is reminding Esav. Why wouldn't he say this out loud? It would be reminding Esav of his, at least the perceived wrong that Esav felt, that Yaakov stole his brachos. So the Torah is sharing with us the thoughts of Yaakov. When it says Ki Amar, the exact language, Ki Amar Achapra Panav B'Mincha, that's Pasuk Chaf, that's 20. Because he said, that means that he said it to himself. The Ramban takes issue with this. He says that's not the way it is. First of all, anybody who gives a gift gives it with a rationale. Okay. Well, what the Ramban says is it doesn't necessarily mean that he's explicitly asking to be forgiven for having wronged Esav, but rather, Achapra Panav is a language of honor to someone. And as Ramban observes, that when somebody greets a person of great power, it is very traditional to present an impressive gift. We see this with heads of state. We see this with kings. We see politicians getting in trouble for accepting gifts. But the practice seems to be fairly widespread, if not universal. If you go to see somebody of importance, if somebody of importance is granting you an appearance, then you present him with gifts. Let's take this as a whole. And we also have this question about why does Yaakov says, V'amartem gam hinei avdecha Yaakov acharenu, and you also say that Yaakov is behind us. Why does he repeat that? Well, some say that the first presentation was, if you meet Esav and he asks you, then these are the answers that you give him. If he doesn't ask you, you still present him. Some say you don't present him with gifts, but let's assume you still present him with gifts. But make sure you tell him that Yaakov is behind you. Why? Because he shouldn't think that Yaakov is running from him. There's a delicate balance here. He's trying to curry favor with Esav so that Esav does not go to war with him. On the other hand, he's also trying to project an image of confidence, of strength, and that he's respecting his brother. It's a nuanced message. But Yaakov repeats it, and he repeats it, and he says it to the first group, and he says it to the second group, and he says it to the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, the exact same message. And in case the circumstances don't arise so that you can communicate it that way, this is the important thing to say, Yaakov is behind us. There's a focus here on presentation. There's a focus on messaging. And why does Yaakov present the animals in this way? And Chazal say because it creates more of an impression. And instead of collecting them be'er buvia in just one mixed multitude of animals and presenting them to Esav, here he gets to contemplate each of them individually. Kind of reminds me when we would make birthday parties for our children. So the guests would come, and each of the kids would bring a birthday gift, and then you sit around after the party and you open up the gifts. If you open them all at once, you lose the impact of any one individual gift because it's just all, oh, let's go on to this, let's go on to that, let's go on to that. And I know that there are some parents who shared with us. I don't think we were quite this disciplined, but there were some parents who shared with us that they would open up after the birthday. They would open up a new gift each day, said each day afterwards would bring its excitement. But certainly allowing the child to fully explore one present before opening up another is probably a good idea. And we learned this from Yaakov, among other things. So Yaakov is not simply giving a gift. First of all, he is giving a gift. He's giving several gifts, and he's doing it in a way which is designed to impress because he has a goal to save his life or to avoid confrontation. And he accompanies that design and that presentation of the gifts with consistent messaging. We might call it, in today's terms, hasbara, or political messaging, getting your message out, crafting the message, getting the message out. This is a legitimate process because when you are fighting a battle, and this is what Yaakov is doing against Esav, it's important to coordinate all of your efforts and to make sure that they are all aimed towards the same goal. And in this case, a righteous goal. We're experiencing that right now as Israel gets its message out about the moral justification for this war and its rectitude in how it's conducting the war. And sometimes it has to be nuanced, and sometimes your goals are multifaceted. But you can't just dump. You can't just say the truth and expect people to dig through your words and come up with the nuggets. It's important to spend time to craft the message and to get it out there so that people will be able to understand who you are and where you're coming from and what you expect to accomplish. Have a good Shabbos.